Hey everyone, Virgil here with CRZY.CYBR signing on, and today we have the long-awaited first video in the chassis fabrication series for the dual EPYC 7551 CPU XMRig minor build that I have affectionately named Hulk because the former is a mouthful. I have been looking forward to starting the fabrication portion of this series for a long time, and even more excited to share the video with the good people of YouTube. Now, as a disclaimer of sorts, I am not a welder. I am not a welder at all, but I do know how to stick 2 or more pieces of metal together. But please, for the love of God, do not try how to learn to weld from this video, or look at any of the welds that I do in this video as an example. I have an extremely cheap, the cheapest one available, Amazon milled welder that I am using for this project, and the results from that machine are far from satisfactory or good or passable or any of that. It has no adjustability at all, except for 2 toggle switches that both say min or max. So it's min or max 1, min or max 2, and they really don't seem to do anything, to be honest. When I was a mechanic, I had access to the shop's high-quality Miller MIG welder, and with that high-quality welder that had all sorts of adjustability, I could stack some dimes. Really did make some nice looking welds with that machine, and I kind of forgot how poor quality my machine was, and so that is not the case in this video. So I really did not want to break this video up into 2 parts because the case still needs a lot of work at this point in time, both in terms of the aesthetics and the quality of the case itself. It needs a lot more grinding, a lot more welding, and, quote-unquote body work. However, I've been promising this video before the end of August, and I really like to be a man of my word and follow through on the things that I say I'm going to do, especially with my audience. I've always been the type of guy that likes to keep my promises, and I hate breaking them, so the fabrication for this case is going to be split up in 2 parts. And this build, guys, what you're watching right now, this is the definition of trust the process. At the end of the video, you're going to see the case is going to still look really rough still, but it is functional at this point, which is, important. So by the time I'm done, hopefully, you and everyone else will think it's a good looking custom chassis made by some guy in his garage with the cheapest MIG welder known to man. So kind of just keep that in mind as you watch the video. So in part 1, you're going to see the process of building this custom chassis from the ground up. All the way from the initial concept sketches and buying the materials, all the way through the fabrication process of the part of the case that's going to hold the motherboard upright. Part 2, that's going to have the rest of the fabrication process from mounting the power supply, the pump, and the radiator, and doing some pretty cool stuff with that I have in mind. All the way to the painted final product that will be our end result of all of this work, and it has been a ton of work, guys. I have over 50 hours of footage just to the point that you'll see at the end of the video now, and it has been a lot of work. So, the obligatory stuff, if you like this video and you're interested in supporting the build, the best way to do that is to check out CRZY.CYBR and potentially purchase some of the custom digital artwork that I created for this build. It has several Easter eggs hidden in the artwork that are inspired by different components of the build, and I personally think it looks pretty cool. It comes with a wallpaper for your phone, as well as several different image files that you can use for whatever. Purchasing one of these digital products, any of them really, is the best way to support the build, and all the profits from that immediately go right back into the channel. And the second best way is obviously liking and subscribing. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's get into the build. What's up, everyone? Virgil here with CRZY.CYBR, and today I am super hype about this video. Today we are going to be starting the fabrication process to build this case. Now here's the concept sketch for the case. You can see it's got a very organic type of feel to it. I took inspiration from trees and nature and circuit boards and a bunch of other components in order to design the very basic concept of this case. It's not really what you would call a case. It's an open concept PC. And in today's video, we are going to start the fabrication process on building this case, which is something I'm extremely excited for. And I've been looking forward to for a very long time. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Ace Hardware and we're going to grab some materials. So, alright guys, we're here at Ace Hardware at an undisclosed location. And today we're going to be purchasing the raw materials to build the PC case. It's going to be a fun project. Going to weld some stuff up. Alright, so this is what we're going to be using to build the PC case. Probably going to need a couple of these. Probably should have taken some measurements before I came here, but it is what it is. So we're going to go ahead and be grabbing one of these, as well as a base, and hopefully this has enough length to get it to where we need to be. It should be enough. We can always come back and get more, but it looks like that was the only one of that size they have. So we're going to fire up the TIG welder. We're going to create a custom PC case. Alright, so I should have the materials necessary. I don't know why, but I didn't take any measurements before I left. I was just excited to get the materials, kind of rushed into it. So now what we need to do is we need to create a template for the mounting holes. And I have found an easy way to do that. I've fabricated some things before. I have a little bit of experience with building stuff. So I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I will grab sheets of just regular A1 printer paper, and we're going to lay them out so that they cover the whole board. And now what we're going to do is I am just going to tape these all together. We're going to grab this Scotch tape right here. Scotch tape, classic. And we are just going to tape all these together. So now we're going to set our beautiful motherboard to the side. We're going to put this mini template down. We're going to kind of just smooth out any creases. And actually we're going to pull this tape up because we don't want any wrinkles in this template that could come up later. So actually what we're going to do is we're just going to, this might be wasteful, but this is something that we really want to be accurate. So I'm just going to make a whole nother one on the flat surface so that it will be more accurate. Now, gonna lay the motherboard back on top of this template. Try to make sure that none of the holes are obstructed. And now, as you can probably guess, we're going to take a fine point micron pen that's usually used for artwork. There you go, super fine. And we are going to hold down our board. We are simply going to trace the mounting holes onto our paper here. Now, the way I'm doing this, this obviously is not going to be as accurate as, for example, 3D scanning it and building an accurate model in a program like FreeCAD or Fusion 360. FreeCAD is something that I've been experimenting with lately, but I am nowhere near on the level that I would need to be to design something like this within it. Over time, I do hope to learn that program. It's super cool, and it has a ton of different uses. I don't think that's a mounting hole, but this one definitely is. Okay. Kind of lost my train of thought there, but basically I didn't have the skills needed in that program in order to design a case for this, so we're just going to do this really old school style. We're going to be cutting and welding and grinding and shaping, and it's going to be a fun product, and it's going to lead to a one-of-a-kind case for this special build that I've been excited for years now. So, there we go. We now have our template. So as you can see, we now have all of our mounting holes located. They are not the cleanest marks in the world, but they certainly give us a position where we know that the arms coming off of the tree need to end up, and then we can either drill the holes later or we can drill them all at once in a way that they will work and everything will line up. So going off of our template, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to have like, I don't really know what word I should use to describe these, but like little knobs basically, that the arms of the tree are going to be welded to on the side. And it will be, let's pretend this 3D printed part is the knob. So it'll be a knob like this, and then the arms from the tree will be welded to it. And then these will be tapped and drilled so that we can put motherboard standoffs into them, and then the motherboard can bolt to those standoffs. So how I'm going to do this is, on the ground, I'll have this template, and then I'll place each knob centered on each one of these holes that we've marked, and that will give me a basic idea for the layout and the structure of the tree and where everything needs to end up. So I've already got my metal rod. I've already purchased that from Ace Hardware. I've already got the plate for the base, which is a little bit thinner than I wanted it to be, but we're going to cut it in half, stack it, and weld the sides so it ups the thickness. I want this to be pretty solid. This is going to be pretty heavy when it's all said and done. So I want to make sure that we have enough of a base to support the weight so that even if it gets bumped into or anything, it won't fall over. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to be going and finding knobs, and I kind of had an idea to make them out of brass just to be fancy, but the brass kind of doesn't really work with the color scheme that well, so I think I am just going to make them out of regular cold steel, and they will be painted black. We might even be doing something pretty creative with the paint job. I'm not 100% sure yet. We'll see how I feel when I see things together and how everything looks and how I'm feeling about everything before I make that decision. So now that we have a template, let's take this to the garage and let's go start laying stuff out. Alright guys, so here we are back in the garage. As you can see, I have our template that we traced out, and I have my concept sketches, which will give me a good idea of how the design of the case needs to start. You can see it comes up from a base here, and it's not really very long here, and everything branches off from the central base. Now, I am not a fabricator or a welder, so all you welder guys, please take it easy on me on the comments. I'm using the cheapest welder that I could get on Amazon for TIG, and I don't even know if that's going to work. I was trying to do some passes. I don't have argon gas. It just doesn't make sense for me to spend $500 on argon gas. I'm just going to try to hit it with the filler and the torch and see what happens. And if that fails, I got my good old trusty cheap Amazon MIG welder that doesn't have any adjustability except for basically an on-off switch for minimum and maximum. And to be honest, I don't think that switch does anything at all. But we are going to do the best job that I can with the resources that are available to me. We're going to be using a bunch of different tools. We're going to be using just cold steel. And we're going to be prepping everything as best we can. Going to be just going through, taking all the steps to make sure that we can produce the highest quality piece that I can with what's available. Now, I have welded before. I originally bought this Amazon MIG welder several years ago when I was working on building a custom frame for a motorcycle build I was working on. This is it right here, somewhere on the screen. It came out okay. When I was working as an auto tech, I welded several exhausts, and they have a really nice MIG welder, and in my opinion, I did some pretty quality work. Made the welds look pretty and nice, even without grinding. So I know a little bit about what I'm doing, at least with the MIG welder. All right, guys, here are our materials. This one right here, we have a hollow cold steel tube. I believe it's 3/4 of an inch. Yep, 3/4 of an inch, 3 feet long. And this is 1/2 inch, 3 feet long. And they're both cold steel, I believe. Oh no, these are hot rolled. That's probably what the red means. As you can see, I have so much experience welding and I know what I'm talking about. Guys, please don't watch this if you're trying to learn how to weld. Go to, Fireball Tool or somebody like that who actually knows what they're doing and what they're talking about. I'm just trying to stick pieces of metal together into a configuration that I find visually appealing as well as being functional. So please, for the love of God, do not watch this if you're trying to learn how to weld. We have the hot steel here, which is going to be forming these arms, and we will be having to notch tubes to make them fix. We don't want to be filling any absolutely massive gaps, right? Especially not with MIG. So this hollow tube is what I'm going to be used to forming the base, because as you can see, it's a little bit wider here. And this plate is very wide, so what I'm going to be doing is cutting it in half, stacking it, and then welding that together so that it's like a smaller footprint, but heavy and sturdy. And that way it will be able to support all the weight of all the different components and be very stable. So that's the goal with this larger plate. It's going to just zip down the middle, stack it, weld it. We're going to be taking measurements. So these are the materials. And later on in the fabrication videos, there will be other materials. I'm still doing some research into fittings and connectors from the automotive industry that I think would be a nice touch, such as, quick connect harness securing systems that, kind of just have a little ball bearing and they click in and hold the harness. I think that would be a really nice touch. And if you ever need to do maintenance, just pop them out, be able to route new cables, route new wires, whatever. So that's the materials. Now let's take a look at my super high quality welders. All right, so as you can see by the state of this cabinet, I have not used this welder in quite some time. But this is just a really cheap Amazon MIG welder. It has served its purpose for me. The only real problem is the extreme lack of adjustability. As you can see, the only adjustments I have here are min, max, 1 and 2, and on and off. It's not plugged in right now, but and I really, to be honest with you, I really don't think those switches do anything. But we'll sure find out. So that is the MIG welder. So for this process, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting this solid piece into about 3/4 of an inch long segments for each one of the posts that the motherboard is going to mount to. And then these little, I'm going to call them slugs. These little slugs, they're going to be drilled and tapped for motherboard standoffs. We don't want anything shorting out, so we want to move it up past and away from the steel, so we have no issues while the computer is running. Once we have all these slugs cut, I'm going to lay them down on each one of these on the center of the hole, glue them down, and then start taking measurements and get an idea. What I'll probably do is cut this plate first, put this on top, weld that, get the base done. Then we're going to be using the hollow tube to form this section right here. And I'm going to just, mount that right in the center. Use this little welding magnet I bought to hold everything at 90 degrees. We'll check it with the magnetic level. And we will be just jumping right into it. This is not an exercise in, precision. This is not going to be an exercise in amazing fabrication, because, there are a billion guys who would be much better suited to this. But I do enjoy metalwork, and I am excited for this project, so we're just going to jump right in. Alright guys, here are a couple of the tools that we are going to be using for the fabrication process, and I'm sure there's going to be stuff that is not on the top of this workbench that we're going to be ending up needing, but just to run you guys through everything real quickly so we can get into the action. Drill bits, grinder, grinding wheels, flap disc, cutoff wheels, hole saw, Scotch-Brite pad, nylon abrasive, steel brushes, flap disc. Bro, what? 7 years as a mechanic and I can't remember what this freaking tool is called. Wow, okay, whatever. Flap disc, embarrassing. Calipers, digital calipers, magnets. We're going to be using a variety of clamps, a variety of wire brushes to prep the surface before we weld. Alcohol, brake clean, obviously the good old measuring tape for things that are longer than the calipers can handle. And this hole saw, I think I mentioned that, but that's going to be quite important when it comes to notching the material to fit snugly into the base. And most likely I'll probably have to run out and get a much smaller one than I had. I thought I had a bunch of them, but I guess I either lent them to a friend or lost them over the years. So those are the tools. So let's get right into cutting and marking and starting with the base. Let's get to it. All right, there's our steel plate. Beautiful. All right, we're going to take our first measurement, and I'm going to go get a Sharpie so I can mark everything. All right, so I'm back with my Sharpie and my large 90 framing square, which we're going to use like this to make sure the line across is straight. All right, so basically 18 on the dot. So I'm going to move this just so it doesn't affect the measurement at all. And we're going to come across here, lock that, put our little mark at 9. Cool. All right, here I have a little clamp vise, and we're going to go ahead and set this up, and we are going to try to, I'm going to try to get this so that we can use this to hold the material in a way that makes cutting it easier. Okay, gotta push this back a little bit. Now we're gonna run the grinder and try to just score this straight across the top, and then we'll just go in and make the cut deeper and deeper as we move through. You're obviously going to be a little off because it's almost impossible to cut a line that straight with the grinder, and I'm sure there are some people that are amazing at that and can do a much better job. But I'm pretty happy with that. So now it's super hot, so we're going to grab some agua. And we already drew the first sacrifice for the product. Blood, sweat, and tears, baby. That's how you know it's going to be good. Alrighty. So now we got our bottom of our base plate. And you can see it's definitely a little off, but that's nothing a flap disc and a grinding wheel won't fix after we tack it together. Alrighty, we're about to throw the first sparks of the project. I'm gonna go ahead and just use the MIG. I really wanted to use TIG and have some nice clean welds, but might just end up returning that thing because I know how to MIG, or at least I know how to stick metal together with it. And if we get to problems where it's blowing through the metal and it's, I can't adjust it down, then we will explore our options with the TIG, but I'm going to go ahead and just start this up. See, this is where it gets interesting because this gap right here, I don't know if you can see that, but even just cutting it warped the metal. Okay, now we're going to tack this in several locations with the MIG welder to start sticking it together. Then we are going to grind one side with the flap wheel so it's perfectly straight, weld it again, move to another side, tack it, grind it, weld it, tack. You get what I'm saying. Now with metal this thin, I'm probably going to have to just weld small sections and let it cool and come back to it and let it cool. This is probably going to take a couple hours just to make this base. So let's get into it. Safety fifth, don't forget your welding helmet, but make sure it's the cheapest one that you can possibly find on Amazon. Alrighty, so now we're going to take a grinder to it and we're going to start making the sides even. We'll start with one side, make it even, weld it again, let it cool, make it even, weld it again, let it cool. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, that should be better. Be able to grind that down. Grinding time! We're going to tack some more. We're going to hit it on the corners. Now I'm kind of in a weird spot because the one doesn't get the penetration that I want and two just blows holes right through it. So it's going to probably take longer than I wanted it to, but all right, next round of welding. All right, so you can see that it's not perfect, but it's pretty much joined together. And right now we're just mocking up the case. So what I'm going to do is just start building the other parts. And I'll come back before it's finalized and painted and just weld everything. And hopefully take it to a buddy who has a better welder. And I have more control so I don't either blow through it or don't get enough penetration. Because that's what I'm in between right now with this one. With this 1 and 2 setting, but you can see it's pretty much joined together. There's a couple little gaps and a couple imperfections, but for the most part, it's together. It is surprisingly flat. Got a slightest bit of wobble. That's pretty flat. And then I know this garage floor isn't going to be perfectly flat, but for what I need, it's good enough. All right. Now our next step is to follow our design. And we're going to mount the trunk of the tree dead center. And we're going to leave, like the drawing shows, we're going to leave enough room between the bottom of the motherboard and the case here for the resource monitor screen that's going to be down below. So you need to take a few measurements. I have a resource monitor screen that I wasn't using. And I know that it's the same height as the one I want to get for this. That's, longer. It's about, so we're going to go take measurements on that, and that'll tell us how high this needs to be versus the bottom of the motherboard. And using our template, we know that the bottom of the motherboard is like maybe 1/8 of an inch below the bottommost mounting holes. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna weld this, then we start doing the fun stuff. I'm gonna start cutting the slugs and laying them out on the template. And once this is mounted, we can prop this up in a way that I'll lay the template down on the floor with all the slugs, and we'll orient this somehow. We'll prop it up so that it's like this above the slugs, and then we'll make our branches off of this to each mounting point of the motherboard. And I know it looks super rough right now, guys, but as they say, trust the process. Because after some sanding and some finishing work and some paint, this thing's going to look like a beauty. Like a beauty as in like a Midwestern beauty, not a Los Angeles or New York beauty. Like an Illinois beauty. Alright guys, here is the extra resource monitor I had lying around. It's one of those, things. This one was A/64, and if you have experience with wanting one of these, that it's an absolute pain in the ass. So, and also the one I wanted for this project is going to be about that long to cover the whole bottom of the motherboard. Hide some cables, look cool, all that good stuff. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this, leave a 1/4 or 1/2 inch for the bottom, a 1/4 or 1/2 inch above the motherboard, and then I'm going to cut the pole to that length. And you can always cut more off. Obviously, you can't add some, so I'm probably going to end up cutting it a little long and seeing where we go from there. Now, another thing that's going to get a little complicated is figuring out the joint at the top of this to like 5 or 6 different poles that will ultimately end up being wider than this. So the notching is going to get a little crazy, and it's going to need a lot of grinding. I do not have the welding skills to make it look pretty, but I have the sanding skills to make it look not ugly, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a measure. So 3 inches, and we'll go plus 1/2 and 1/2, plus a 1/2 for the motherboard, and then some variance for issues. We're going to mark this at 5.5 inches, and we're going to cut it. Right now, everything's very tacked together. Remove, check, tack together, check, remove, add. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is what I should have done is I should have taken the time to learn free CAD before this build and really done something really technical and put together really, really nicely. But the purpose of this is kind of to just show, like, if you have a goal in mind and you have the will and the drive, you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. Too many people in this world are just freaking crybabies, man. Oh, I don't have this. Woo. Bro, get it done. You want to go get it. So that's what we're doing. All right, so we're going to cut this at 5.5 inches. All right, we got our trunk. Just need to do a little cleanup here. All right, so here comes our next problem. And that is, it's going to be hard to find the center of this because the sides are not square. So we're going to find the best center that we can using just traditional measuring methods, tape measure. And then once we have it as close as we can get it, then we are going to eventually, when it's time for final processing, we're going to square up the sides to the central trunk. So that's the route we're taking here. All right, so that is our center. So now we are going to go ahead and hook this up to the welder. We're gonna grab our 90-degree magnet and put our cut piece of trunk down that we've already prepped. So there's our 90-degree magnet. You know, these are cheap. This was $5 at Lowe's. And how this is gonna work is it's gonna go like that and hold the trunk at 90. We're gonna tack it in a couple places and then we're gonna weld the rest of the way around it. Now, we already have the surfaces on both of the things we're welding prepped. And this magnet here is gonna hold it. So I'm gonna place this in the center as best I can. Okay, now we are ready to tack. And you can see that the resource monitor is gonna have enough room. And also, from the bottom of the motherboard, we'll have enough room here to branch off the side as well as the top. And that should help me solve the problem of joining, you know, 8 to 10 pieces of tube in just this small surface area. So we are going to now throw the welder. We're gonna tack it. Skibbity pat. I'm probably gonna have to play with the settings a little bit. I really don't know how this is gonna go because this welder just has no adjustability. When I worked at Mr. Tire, while I was there for a while, they had a really nice MIG welder, and that thing you could dial in exactly how you wanted to get perfect weld, but this has no adjustability. It has a knob and a wire feed. It has 2 switches, 1 and 2, and min and max, and then it has a wire feed. So we're doing the best we can with what we got available at this current point in time. So okay, a little more than a tack, and this is even blowing holes in this, so we got to go to the minimum setting. Alright guys, this is not ideal. The welds are absolutely terrible, but it's on the absolute minimum setting, so there's not much I can do. I'm going to try to just go around and just do little tacks. I'm going to try to cool this down a little bit. It warped a lot just with that, so I'm going to try to cool it down. Reaching the limits of my equipment, and I'm going to have to do a lot of grinding for sure. But it is what it is. We will overcome these obstacles and we will get it done. Problem is just an opportunity to overcome. Alright, that's pretty good. Let's welds, not the welds, but the 90-degree-ness. Alright, so I don't want to warp the metal any more than it already has from the heat. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to let that cool, and we're going to come back with a Dremel and various attachments, and we're going to start shaping the welds and smoothing those out, because pretty atrocious. Like I said, I am not a welder. Please take it easy on me in the comments. I just stick pieces of metal together, slap them together. But we have our base and our tree trunk, and that's an exciting thing. And what we're gonna do next is start cutting the slugs for the mounting points of the motherboard. All right, guys, now we are going to start cutting the slugs, or the mounting points for the motherboard standoffs that we're gonna be using to mount the motherboard to this chassis. I'm still letting the tree trunk, if you will, I'm still letting that cool. It warped quite a bit. I should have done it in definitely different stages and waited it for it to cool more. So that's an issue I'll have to deal with later. But right now we are going to start cutting these slugs. And this is going to be kind of challenging to hold this rod and this little ass vise, but it's the vise I have to work with. Okay, never mind. That's pretty good. All right, and we are going to be using 3/4 inch sections. I might see how this, I'm going to cut one and see how this would fit against it, because we need to weld each one of these slugs to a tree branch made out of this rod. I might end up having to go get another one of these. We'll see. Hopefully we have enough here, but if not, it's no big deal. I'm going to grab my Sharpie and hopefully be able to find my tape measure. I put it somewhere. It is somewhere. Okay. Threw that on the ground apparently. There we go. You know, I'm thinking 1 inch sections actually. I think that'll give us more room. I think that'll give us more room, and then if we have to shave any material off to straighten them, we'll have to shave some off to prep them for welding. So, and to give us some room for error. And this is the first time I've ever built a case like this. My welds have never been amazing. I've never been an amazing welder, as I think I was quite clear about in the beginning. But behind me there's a 91 CBR 600 F2 frame that I customize, and it's together. You know, it's stuck together. It's not going anywhere. But my welds leave a lot to be desired. But all I gotta say is just wait till it's done. I promise you it's not gonna look bad. We got a lot of grinding and finishing work to do, and we're gonna make these bad welds look as pretty as possible, look as smooth as possible, and it'll end up looking decent when I'm done, I promise you. All right, let us get to cutting. We need to cut 9 of these slugs just for the motherboard, and we are going to have to come up with a solution for mounting the Freezemod reservoir and pump. I'm still debating if with that mounting solution for the pump, I'm going to go what's in the drawing. I'm not 100% sure that's the best solution. There's a part of me that thinks that I could come up with a better solution, including the mounting bracket that comes with that pump. Here's the pump in question. That's available on CRZY.CYBR if you want one for your build. Super cool. Got an LCD screen for various water cooling metrics, and you know, just who doesn't like metrics, right? So those are available on CRZY.CYBR.com. Would support the build and go a long way if you ordered one, and I would greatly appreciate any orders on the site. All of that goes directly back into the channel and producing content for you guys. Got some apparel on the way. Here is my latest design. I'm still got to name them. Usually I have a pretty cool name for them when I'm done. But that guy will be coming and available on posters and shirts, and hopefully I'm talking to a manufacturer right now about mouse pads. I think he would look really cool on a mouse pad. So keep an eye out for that. All right, let's cut more slugs. Yep, they are hot. I can feel them through the damp paper towel. There's two. Alrighty. All 9 slugs are cut. Alright guys, now my slugs are cool to the touch. We're going to stack them up and see the height variance in them. And we're going to stack them up over on the, machine table. And we're going to see the height difference, and then we're going to mill them down to the same height. Alright guys, there we go. Now they're all the same relative height, and I'm not going for, CNC precision here. I'm just going for, couldn't really be able to tell that well if you look from where you're supposed to be looking from, that they're completely uneven. Now they're relatively the same height. This clamp is pretty straight. They're pretty accurate. So they should be pretty close in height. Some of them were a little tilted. It's going to be a little bit off, but we'll just make that the backside. Not a big deal. Alright guys, here we are on the ground, and you're going to have to excuse the mess. I've been hard at work on this and haven't had much time to clean up yet. I'll probably end up doing it at the end after this is all built, go through the garage and clean everything. It kind of needed it a little bit anyway. Everything's kind of organized, but it's just, it needs a good spring cleaning. So everything, there we got our template down on the ground there. And here is the idea. So we've got our slugs, and if you remember, I surfaced the top of all these, so they should sit pretty flush. We're going to line up our slugs. And this is just going to give us a general idea for right now of where these things need to go. And any fine-tune adjustments will be made using the actual motherboard as a template, because now that I know that I'm epoxying the standoffs in, realistically, I could just, if anything doesn't line up perfectly, I can just drill it out more, and then kind of wait till the epoxy is a little bit set, bolt the motherboard to it, making sure obviously none of the epoxy gets on it, and using the motherboard itself to line everything up. Or I could potentially make this same template out of something like cardboard or something like that, which would probably be a better option, because that way I don't have to worry about it damaging the motherboard in any way. So the way that this is oriented is the top, and this is roughly the size of the motherboard. So we kind of want this to be relatively vertical. I want it to lean back a little bit. So if this is the motherboard and we go like this and it's straight, then when we come back, it'll be leaned back. So if I did it like this and then welded everything together to it, and then basically the more I do this, the more it'll be leaned back, and if I did this, it would be leaned forward, which we don't want. So we kind of want to prop it up somewhere around there where it has a slight tilt back. Now, if I wanted to be crazy precise about this, I could go get my angle meter and measure all the angles, but I'm thinking right there should be pretty good. I could use my 90 magnet and hold it right there, which isn't a terrible idea, because in the drawings it's all perfectly 90 degrees and vertical. But if you look at where the base is, I would have to raise this up in order to get it closer to this. And I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, just because, you know, we don't want the weight to be super far towards the front, because then it'll be much easier for it to topple over. But this base is pretty large. I mean, I don't think we'll have any issues with it tipping forward. But I'm going to grab 2 of these extremely beautiful, I believe it's black poplar, that I was saving for a bookshelf. And we're going to use these 2 boards here to raise this up. Okay, now that right there is pretty darn good. So I'm going to grab my 90-degree magnet, and we will simply use that to hold the base in position. See, here's the thing, that now that I know that I'm gonna epoxy the standoffs in, these slugs aren't even really necessary. But we are going to take our rod here, and we're gonna start building branches off to each one of these. So take some measurements here. All right, and that is looking like 1 foot 1 inch. I am gonna have to get another one of these rods, almost certainly. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take measurements and cut them all to their general length. And then after that, what I will do is I will begin radiusing the pipes to notch it, so that we'll be able to weld them. To do what you are aiming to do, you make do with what you have, and you make do with the skills that you have. Okay, and there we have our first tree branch tacked. And depending on how this goes, we'll basically kind of just work our way off the rest of, like, this branch will come from here, this branch will go here, and then up here, and branch off here. Alright, that's much less of a gap, and we're going to have to do so much grinding and welding anyway that that adding more weld or less weld to fill a gap doesn't really matter at this point, because no matter what we do, we're going to be doing a lot of grinding and a lot of shaping. Something like coming like that and then just going straight to the rest of them. And then these two have one come here and then have the branch come out of the same section. These are going to have to be notched pretty deeply in order to make that work, but we got to do what we got to do to make this happen. And I've had this vision for a long time, and we're not going to stop and we're not going to quit. So we're going to come straight off of there, branch off of here, maybe even branch down to this one and then just have that little one coming out to here. This one's going to have to be either start like this and then branch here and then branch there from this point, or we branch off of here and kind of just branch straight off of there. I'm leaning towards branch here and branch here. So now what we can do is we can go ahead, take a look at what we got so far. And it does have that slight lean back, which is absolutely perfect. I could not have asked that to work out better. And the best part is we kind of always know where we are in 3D space, because we can just line back up to the posts. So, guys, I just want to stress right now that this is not going to be perfect. Say hi to Kingsley. He's the best boy. What are you doing, dude? This is not going to be perfect. This might have a slight angle to it. It might not be perfectly straight up and down. But those small adjustments in order to shift it can be made by drilling the holes with the epoxying of the standoffs into the base. So we're going hard right now, guys. We're putting in the work. Now it's just we got to build the tree, and this is the hardest part. So I'm going to go ahead and go get more rod, probably get 2 of them just in case of mistakes, or this, they usually come in 3-foot sections. So right here we got, I'm going to measure past it, we got 14 inches, so that's a foot and change, plus 8, 22 inches, 30 inches, 35.5 inches, and yeah, so we're gonna need 2, which is super annoying. Oh, I guess we got this piece, but it's better to just get 2, and if I don't use it, return it instead of making 2 trips to the freaking store. Alrighty, let's go get some material. Alright guys, we are back from Ace Hardware, and I picked up a couple things in addition to the new tree branch rod in order for the both the prep of the material and the shaping of the material in the final finishing stages. These are made by DeWalt. I got this at Sneed's, Ace Hardware. This is DeWalt, but it's Milwaukee Gang. But no, DeWalt makes good stuff too. The whole brand battle thing is hilarious. So you boys got a Milwaukee Gang. Alright guys, so we are back to work on the PC case the next day. This thing is turning into quite the time-consuming project, but I always knew it was going to be that. So we are doing what we got to do to make this vision a reality. Nice them, not this one. We're going to have to go here. You know, I wanted to get 2 of these rods, but Ace only had 1. So I might have to take a trip to frickin' Lowe's, which would kind of suck because that's a lot farther away, but gotta do what we gotta do, honey. Alright guys, so I'm back and we're going to glue down all the little slugs. There's probably a more technically correct term for this, but I'm just not aware of what it is. And I'm just so, I don't know if you guys definitely can't see that, but these things are dead center. That first branch is just on point. The only thing I'm worried about is I tried to make right here, where the base is versus the sheet, where it's kind of I'm worried that's going to be at a slight angle. Again, guys, I'm really not the best fabricator. This is just something fun that I always wanted to do for a cool build. And I'm worried that that is going to have the motherboard at a slight angle. And in order to correct that, we're going to have to drill the holes where the standoffs will be epoxied in. And we'll have to make those holes significantly bigger and use that to be able to fine tune and adjust the angle of the motherboard. What I should have done was taken more time with it. But at this point, I've been so busy lately, guys, and I just haven't had time to do this. And I've been really wanting to get this video out for you guys because I've been talking about this build for like 4 or 5 months now, you know, and I really want to get to it and get it done. And I know you guys were really interested in seeing it. I can't tell you how many comments I've gotten asking about it and people saying they're excited to see it. Hopefully you guys aren't disappointed by my fabrication skills, which you probably are, let's be honest. But this is just V1, right? And there will be a V2 at some point. Preferably when I have more time to get a better welder and practice with my TIG. That way I can really put together a really nice, clean piece. Because I've mentioned this in previous videos, guys, but I love exposed welds. I love the industrial look. I love the mechanical look. I'm a huge fan of exposed welds, and when a weld is clean, I think it's beautiful. You know, like a nice titanium intake for a car where you see all the welds and the coloration from the heat. I think it's just so cool. I love it. And so that was the goal with this, but it wasn't in the budget to get a super nice welder for this project. I'm putting a lot of money into this YouTube channel, and this build alone is probably going to cost me $2,000 or $3,000. And that's fine because it's something I'm passionate about, you know, so I don't really care about kind of spending that money to do something I really love, right? I forget who said it, but it was one of those people who said, like, stress is when you work for something you're not passionate about. And I forget the rest of it, but you get the point. Alright guys, so the super glue, I didn't read the back. It takes 24 hours to cure, so we're going to do the best we can. Otherwise, I might have to go run out and get some if it's too sketchy. But I just notched this piece. I took a grinder to try to fit it more to the profile of the rod. So now we're going to see, yeah, and we're going to need to adjust this for the angle, so we're going to need to do a little bit more. Okay, that's pretty damn good there. Okay, we need to go a little bit more. this is just the most annoying thing to me is that super glue. What practical use, I mean, for real, is a super glue that takes 24 hours to cure? The only time I've ever used super glue, I needed it to dry as fast as possible. But that's my fault. And that is beautiful. I mean, good Lord, that is maybe 1/8 of an inch gap. Alright guys, so I think it's important for you to remember that right now we are just tacking everything in place. Once everything's laid out and kind of put where it needs to be, we'll go back, weld everything fully, shape the welds, make everything smooth and look pretty. I'm going to be going out to get some filler of some type so we can really get that nice, clean, smooth look. Please bear with me, guys. I know it looks so rough right now, and definitely not the best fabrication, but the end result is what we're looking for. And I think I can still get a pretty good end result. So now we are going to come off the side like this. Alright, well, it looks like we tripped the circuit breaker. What's up, guys? We are back in the lab. So here is the hardware kit that I got for the build, and these are the standoffs that we are going to be epoxying in place into the slugs that were created for the motherboard to mount to. So this kit has everything I need, as well as a couple of other things that are nice to have, like, you know, the rear cases. I'll link this kit down below. It's extremely reasonably priced. To be honest, kind of surprising, the price point that this was. It's only like $10 or $11 if I remember correctly. And you can never have too many M3 standoffs of various sizes for things like those M.2 drives and stuff of that nature. Real quick while we're here, guys, if you wanted to support the channel and wanted to support the build series, downloading one of the digital products, which is my own personal artwork that I've done. They all come with digitals for formats of, you know, phone wallpapers, and things of that, PNG files you can place and scale without any loss to any sort of device you're using. We also have some free training, and some more of that will be going up later this month. We have the HTML cheat sheet here, available completely for free. And another thing that is available on the site is we have some really cool 3D printing files for the flipper, again completely free. So none of these were designed by me, I just want to make that clear. Every single one of these has the original link to the product in the description, so if you wanted to support the original artist, you can download it from their profile. I just thought these were really cool and wanted to gather them all in one place so that they're easy to find for people who love the flipper as much as I do and think it's one of the coolest things ever, and want to have some cool files for it, such as these hard cases or the dev board case. This is the one I use personally, and this is actually right there. I haven't sanded it or anything and accidentally stopped the print too soon because I ran out of filament, but it printed far enough that it works, so pretty soon I'll be redoing that. But downloading these would be cool if you want to. You can sign up for the cybersecurity newsletter. The Crazy Cyber newsletter with, you know, sneak peeks on videos and new content on the way and stuff like that. We're growing every day, trying to put out some unique and, you know, some cool content that you guys want to see. And it seems like people are liking it. Doing pretty well here. So feel free to go ahead and subscribe and enjoy the content, guys. Alright guys, we are back at it with the tree, with the base. Coming back here the next day. After I popped that fuse, I kind of wanted to just give it a little break. We only got 2, technically 3 more branches to make, as well as to connect a 4th. We only really have two more major branches to build before we can begin welding the whole thing and sculpting and starting to make it look pretty, because right now it's ugly AF. And that's kind of just how this stuff goes, at least if you're working with one of the shittiest welders of all time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to begin working on connecting this branch here, and then we might even connect here and then branch off of this branch right to there, just because that's going to be more likely easier to do than this. We'll try to build up some welds just to temporarily attach some of these potentially. We still got quite a few of these to do, and it's going to be a lot of grinding, and I mean a lot of grinding. So let's get to it. Going to begin by taking a measurement here, and we're going to go a little bit past because we want room, so when we try to shape the tubing to the other tube, that we have enough room to remove material. So I'm going to cut that one at 6 inches. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. And then when this is done, we'll just trim off the excess with the grinder. All right, now I'm thinking something like that right there. My goal is I'm probably going to have to do this video in 2 parts. Not terrible. Need a little bit of notching to be perfect, but I think we're just going to fill that in. Tell me why that penetrated better than when it's on a higher setting, bro. This thing, don't buy welders from Amazon. Trying to think of something to compare this to, but the welds are just so bad. Okay, we actually got some good penetration. I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see. But if you look, you can see right there how parts that are down past here that should have been part of separate poles are now all one piece. And you can see as I grinded the weld into the tube, it's all one piece. And maybe I should have said this sooner, but that's what I meant when I said penetration. When you weld something, you need it to like fuse the metals together into one piece for structural integrity. And I was worried about the weld penetrating into the other metal and joining them into one piece. Because if I was trying to weld something that thick with this welder, and it was solid, I don't think it would be able to penetrate into that piece and effectively fuse the 2 metals together. But it's looking like we actually got some decent penetration here. And especially here on the back side, really surprised by that, really pleased by that. And it's looking like I'm going to have to invest in some new tools to really shape the innermost part of these corners. And it's either going to be that, or I'm going to have to go find somebody with a much better welder than me so that I can lay down some nice welds, because this one is just so hard to lay down a nice weld. Whereas if you had something that was like made by a reputable welding machine maker like Lincoln Weld or Miller, it's a lot easier to lay down some nice welds that penetrate into the material and really fuse those pieces together. So still pleased with what my $100 Amazon welder did. My MIG welder, I think it was like $180 or something like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and sort of hold this here somehow, and I'm going to weld grind one of the slugs and see how that penetrated. And that's really good to see. So now it's going to be a game of filling the holes. We got a bunch of little holes. If you look right there, you see there's a hole right there. And there's a bunch of holes, so it's going to be a game of grind, fill, grind, fill, grind, fill. And this is going to take a long time, and this is a lot of work. Oh, man. I should have farmed this out, guys. I wanted to do it myself, but yeah, I'm grinding, boy, let me tell you. This is not easy work. All right, guys, so I'm back with my template I made, and this is a really good opportunity to double check everything we did so far, given the fact that everything was really burnt up. And all right, guys, I am back from Ace, and we kind of got a couple things to go over here at this stage in the build. So I have the epoxy to epoxy in these M3 standoffs, which we're going to use to mount the motherboard to the base. I have a center punch to drill accurate holes because my spring-loaded one broke. It was a cheap one from Alley. And this is where like the most major changes. So fighting this welder and fighting my circuit breaker in the garage, tripping on and off over and over again. What I'm focusing on now is making sure everything is solid and it's welded properly. It's all one piece and it won't go anywhere. And we are going to be using this metal epoxy putty that is sandable to shape the rest of the base. And let me show you what I mean. So on sides of it like this, where we have kind of just a straight tube and a straight tube coming up at a 90, we're going to be taking that sandable putty, and I know this is solid. I've smacked that with the hammer. I mean, that's one piece. That's not going anywhere. So we're going to grind the welds down, and we're going to be using this epoxy to add some sort of shape to just improve the aesthetic appeal. And since everything that is needed to be solid is already solid and it's structural and it's good to go, anything after that is just aesthetic appeal, right? It's just something to make it look better. So that's what we're going to be going with this. And you guys saw me check this with the square. Everything's super flat. The way I chose to fabricate this really helped out a lot in terms of, because if I had to try to do this in 3D space, it would have been impossible to get the flatness that I achieved here by just having these on the ground. So in terms of welding, the only things we're going to be welding now is we're going to add like areas that really need it, like here. We'll be filling that with some weld. Things like that, we'll be filling that with some weld, and then we'll be grinding and smoothing everything. With a variety of tools like sandpaper, obviously the grinder with flat discs, and I have all these diamond Dremel bits to get into those nooks and crannies. The shaping is going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort. But I knew what I got myself into when I said I was going to do this, and we're going to do it. Alright guys, we have got a mess and everything welded up. So now we're going to begin the super fun process of grinding and welding and grinding and welding and grinding and welding and grinding and welding until this thing looks decent. I also obviously said before I have that epoxy that we're going to be using to help sculpt, just because if I had a good welder, we wouldn't even really need to do this. Alright guys, so this is where I'm at with this plan right here. I really just need to get everything to a close enough shape so that I can mold everything with the what's basically JB Weld epoxy metal. That's going to be a lot easier to sand and shape than the metal itself. It's going to sand a lot faster and end up looking a lot smoother. So basically I'm just knocking off all the really problem areas and smoothing things around the slugs, so that by the time I start working with the weld to kind of build these areas up over and shape them and round them off, it'll be a lot easier, and I'll have a good solid base to build off of. Alright guys, so here we are at my currently very messy desk because of a couple of ongoing projects. I have the base on the desk, and now we're going to do probably one of the most crucial steps, and that is, here is the motherboard. Oops, apparently got a 1 terabyte hard drive just chilling. So here is the motherboard, and as you can see on the back, I've installed all the standoffs and the mounting locations we're going to be using. Okay, so I'm going to create yet another tracing paper template, and I'm going to put a bit of paint on each one of these standoffs, and then I'm going to place this down onto the tracing paper to create an exact template of where these mounting points are, and we are going to double check before we start really shaping the base, as well as welding any additional sections or components to it, that this will mount properly and that we are within the slugs, or whatever you want to say. So I'm going to go ahead and make our tracing paper template really quick. I'm not going to film that because I've filmed that process enough times for a freaking lifetime at this point. So again, just using some fancy tracing paper from Artwork Stuff. As you can see, I do a lot of artwork. Okay guys, so I am back. I'm back. I have my template, so we're gonna set our base off to the side here. And so as long as when I line up this template with the posts on the case, quote unquote the case, chassis, I feel like is a more accurate term, but whatever, that's semantics. So as long as they line up with the posts or the slugs or whatever you want to say, we will be good to go, and then we can start fabricating what we need to for the power supply and the Okay, that worked surprisingly well the first time. Awesome. Alright, so now let's take a look. What I should do is kind of tape it on the top. See, this is actually better because now the points are all closer to the top, so I don't have a ton of excess paper. Okay, and that's actually good because now I'll have some rotation. So the good thing about these slugs is that I made them pretty big on purpose. So you can see we got centered there, centered there, centered there, centered there, centered there, centered there. I mean, guys, I'm hype. I am hype. That is phenomenal. Every single, that's so, oh my gosh, guys, I am hype. I was so sure I was gonna have to cut a bunch of shit and a bunch of stuff, excuse me, and weld it again. And now we can just move on and make more progress on this base, and that is extremely exciting. So now what we need to do is I need to kind of hold the motherboard up here and position this. It really doesn't even have to be super far off the ground, because we want enough room to make bends that make sense, right? We don't want to have to make incredibly tight turns when it comes to our tubing. We want to give ourselves some room so that when we make the bends, we're not really making it super tight radiuses and potentially squashing the inner diameter of the tube. Now, I have purchased some products that are available on CRZY.CYBR, and I'll show you guys one of them now because it's quite relevant to what I'm talking about now. So here it is, and it's just a silicone rope. It's flexible, and it's 16 millimeter OD outer diameter, and this actually goes inside inside the acrylic tubing, and I'll show you guys that. So it goes like this, and you can see it's a nice, it's a very, I mean, it's not unbelievably tight. There is a little bit of room for expansion because we are going to be heating up the tube with this inside. And this allows, when you're bending tube, for it to maintain the inner diameter and making sure nothing gets pinched off. So when you make a bend, like we'll heat it here, then make the bend, and this will keep it the inner diameter relatively consistent and avoid kinks, which obviously would reduce flow, which is obviously bad for cooling. So, and that's important when we're thinking about the position. When we're thinking about the position of the pump, right? We want the pump to be positioned in a place that makes sense. So I'm going to just hold up the motherboard, and I'm going to just place it against the post. That is so satisfying. Oh my gosh, that looks sick. Okay, so we're going to want this. I mean, honestly, we're going to want this probably out here pretty far. This is the return here, and this is the pump here. So let me talk about that real quick. So if you watched my previous video where I go over all the parts for the build, you see I have these Y fittings. And I have these because we're going to 2 CPUs, right? We don't want to go from one CPU, right, pull all the heat and then send that to the other CPU. So what I'm going to do is be using these Y fittings in order to send cold, fresh, cooled water to both CPUs, take it from both CPUs into one inlet in the radiator, and then I can just go from the radiator back here. So although I could have figured out a different solution with a different loop, I think the Ys are a really good idea, honestly. If you have a ton of experience water cooling, feel free to chime in. You know, I haven't done a ton of scientific research into whether or not this is the best solution. To me, this is just kind of common sense, right? I don't want to take hot water from this CPU, you know, put in the cold water, pull out the hot water from the other side and send that right to the other CPU. There might be, the only thing I could think of as to why that might be fine is if the water's moving fast enough that it will still cool effectively. But in my mind, I would rather send cold, fresh water to both CPUs, join the output of those CPUs into one tube, and then send that into the radiator for cooling. So now comes yet another challenge with welding, which is really, as you guys can see, the welding is not going great. That welder is just, well, to be frank, it's a piece of garbage. It was $150, and
it's fine, you know, to stick things together and grind and stick and grind and stick, but for something like this with some angles you got to get in and tight spaces that are going to be hard to grind with a full size grinder, it's really not great, to be honest. So now we need to figure out the radiator placement, and as I've discussed before, I think we're gonna go something like that, and we might even just straight up lean it. Well, I'll create a bar across here on the backside and just lean it and have it set there, and it will be attached with magnets. Actually, I think this is a copper radiator. Yes, the radiator is copper, so magnets can't hold it there. But what the magnets can do is mount to the steel and create some sort of a gate that could hold the radiator in there, or some sort of, quote, latch where, you know, there's like a piece that goes around here and holds it that just sticks to the steel on either side, which is really not a bad solution. It would make it easy to remove for maintenance. Okay, so now our next step is, after the radiator and the pump, which, to be honest, the pump is going to have to sit a lot lower than I thought it was going to. In my original drawings, I had it basically level, but I think that's going to end up making some tight bends, and I kind of want a decent amount of length in tubing, because the longer the loop is, the more time the fluid has to cool, right? And in addition to that, it's a major aesthetic component of the build. So I kind of want, because if I have it just off the ground, right, and it's here on display, we've got the metric screen here, which is going to look sick, right? Then I can come from all the way down here and go all the way up to the CPUs, and then not only will I have more tubing, so the fluid can be cooled more, but I have another element that's going to contrast the green motherboard, because the coolant is going to be purple. And there is a lot of green on this motherboard, obviously, so we need something to balance out the amount of green. Now, the graphics card, not quite sure if we're going to paint that yet, but if we do, it will probably be mostly black with some purple and green aesthetic elements. I'm going to have to think about if I want to paint that or not, because it's really just kind of a something it's purely functional. It's not. Monero is mined with CPUs. It's a CPU mined crypto. So the graphics card is only just so I can see the screen, right? So I did not go crazy. It's a pretty old graphics card. I have it right here. Yeah, EVGA GTX 760. It's an old card. It's not powerful. Not sure how many gigs it has. I would be shocked if it had 12. I'll have to look that up. But, so, this case, for the card, yeah, we'll probably, no way, is the thing still on here? Wow, dude, this went, that's crazy. It still has the film on here. Alright, satisfying moment. I'm going to peel this film that's been on here for like, I don't even know how many years. Oh, heck yeah. Oh, yes. Now that I'm peeling this off, I suddenly remember that during fabrication, I'm going to have this mounted so I know where the pipes are going to go, and that was probably very foolish. But man, that, I mean, obviously it looks brand new now. That's dope. Okay, so I can't believe I was filming into that light the whole time and didn't notice it, but whatever. So maybe the only thing that would be worth doing is, I hate chrome. I hate chrome. I hate silver. My car is all black. I don't like any chrome or any silver. But it's probably not worth the effort because we need to get cooking on this build, man. This is taking a lot longer than I... Now it's time to get some sort of shims. Oh, another thing I'm going to have to do is, I mean, all right, here's where my moral character and my values as someone who is selling some of these products outweigh greed and wanting to make money. But the bracket that they sent with this cooler, the holes don't line up because the pump is blocking it. I mean, the pump itself is beautiful and it looks amazing, but that is just such an oversight. That, I mean, keep that in mind, guys. If you're going to order this from the store, just keep that in mind. You might get a bracket that doesn't line up. Hopefully the company Freezemod has fixed it by now. But that's, I mean, that's not great attention to detail. It seems like they spent all their time focusing energy on the pump. I mean, the pump looks phenomenal. Everything's really solid and well built, but that is just... And trust me, I've flipped it around and I've tried every single side and every single hole, and you can see it's just the this is pretty much symmetrical. At least this part is here. These are a little bit different, but you can see... Mirror, can you? I don't know, maybe. You can see the holes don't line up. Can you see the... I hope you can see it, but the top of the hole is like... Not even half the hole is available. It's like a third of the hole. But... So just keep that in mind, guys. If you're going to order one of these, I would hate for people who support my channel to order one of these from me and not be aware of that. So just keep that in mind if you're going to order this. Obviously, with these mounting holes, you can easily make your own bracket or 3D print a bracket. But just keep that in mind, guys, okay? You know, morals over profit, guys. Yeah, if that was how it was, man, the world would be a much better place. So I'm going to try to add to that and not take away from that. This is part one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are excited to see the process of turning this into an ugly hunk of metal into something that's aesthetically pleasing and looks a lot better. We're going to smooth everything out. We're going to sculpt it. We're going to use filler and all sorts of stuff to make it look good. And I know that's kind of hard to believe right now, seeing how it looks now, but I promise you when I'm done with it, it's going to be pretty good looking. So thanks everybody for watching so much. Like I said, if you would like to support the build, please go ahead to CRZY.CYBR.com. Check out the digital products that we have there. Those are the best way to support the build. Any of the products I'm using for this build are available on CRZY.CYBR.com. You can purchase any of them from there. I say a lot. Need to work on that. Self-improvement always. But in addition to that, if you guys want to check out the Instagram, CRZY.CYBR, the Facebook page, CRZY.CYBR, post some content to there as well. Got some videos on the Flipper Zero coming soon. And I'm going to be, very soon I'm going to be having some computers, some penetration testing machines that I'm going to purchase, upgrade myself, set up how I would set them up, and I will be listing them for sale on the website with some custom artwork for me done on the cover of the PC. They'll all be laptops, and I'll be upgrading the RAM, the memory, and just trying to set it up as something that could be a capable penetration testing machine. There will be written guides on each of the programs that I put onto those machines, telling how to use them and, you know, all that good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We got a lot more work to do and a lot more content coming soon. So like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Virgil CRZY.CYBR, logging off.